the biggest thing I can do with the platform that I have, and that's the same thing Taylor did. And I think continue to educate yourself with the candidates that we have, the policies that they're supporting. I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, I grew up as a kid, obviously, you're from the state of Iowa, so like you go to the pumpkin patch, you go do those type of things in the fall. Corn mazes are a lot more difficult than people probably think.
Taylor Swift just accidentally started a basketball revolution, and Angel Reese is freaking out. You know how Swift's dating Travis Kelce? Well, Reese had Kelce's ex on her podcast, thinking she'd get some juicy gossip, but it backfired big time. Instead of taking Reese down, it made Caitlin Clark blow up.
Dating men in general is a challenge, regardless of what their profession is.
Yeah.
Especially if they're a man of influence or affluence, like they have money themselves.
What also one without power. I feel like it's hard for me to like date another man with power because they kind of know like I'm not going for your BS.
Yes.
Like
Absolutely.
you know I'm not going for the stuff that other women may be okay with.
You know what I mean? Like I just don't think that. I think they would be intimidated by you, number one, but
yeah.
two, like I don't see that you would be attracted to that type of man. So. It works both ways.
The Swifties found out about Clark's skills, and now they're her biggest cheerleaders. Reese is throwing a tantrum, but Clark's out here breaking records like it's nothing. It's wild how one tweet changed everything. You know what's crazy? Taylor Swift just accidentally started a basketball revolution. It all began with a simple tweet from Caitlin Clark, welcoming Swift to Chiefs Kingdom. Little did Clark know that innocent message would unleash a tidal wave of Swifties onto her social media. Imagine this, Clark's typical basketball fans were suddenly overwhelmed by an army of Swift enthusiasts. Her follower count didn't just grow, it exploded overnight. We're talking numbers that'd make even the biggest influencers jealous. Clark went from a rising star in women's basketball to a household name faster than you can say shake it off.
Something that I had to learn early on was like, your relationship could be over tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what do you have? Like you have no leg to stand on, you have no home to go back to, you have no career to fall back on. But from that point moving forward, it was like, I don't care who I date. I don't care where they are. I'm gonna always have my own place.
Yeah.
I'm gonna always have my own car. I'm gonna always focus on my career, support theirs, but really prioritize my own goals. Because I think behind closed doors, the hardest part about a breakup is just losing like a partner and a best friend and this person that you talk to every single day. You go from speaking every day to having to really like cut ties. Yeah.
But here's where it gets wild. The Swifties didn't just follow Clark, they became her biggest cheerleaders. They started digging into her stats, sharing her highlight reels, and hyping up her every move on the court. It was like Clark suddenly had millions of new best friends, all ready to defend her honor against anyone who dared criticize her game. This isn't your typical celebrity endorsement. We've seen athletes get boosts from famous fans before, but nothing like this. Remember when Drake started supporting the Raptors? That was big. But it was nothing compared to the Swift effect. The Swifties aren't just passive supporters. They're actively learning about basketball, buying merch, and even showing up to games. Now, you might be wondering how Clark's rival, Angel Reese, is taking all this attention. Let's just say she's not thrilled. While Clark's star is rising faster than a three-pointer at the buzzer, Reese is feeling the pressure. She's used to being the center of attention, but now she's watching from the sidelines as Clark becomes the unexpected face of women's basketball overnight. Clark's handling it like a pro though. She's not letting the sudden fame go to her head. Instead, she's using it as fuel to push her game even further. She's breaking records left and right, and the Swifties are eating it up. Every basket, every assist, every win, it's all being celebrated by millions of new fans who'd never even watched a women's basketball game before. As Clark basks in her newfound fame, her rival Angel Reese hatches a plan to steal back the spotlight. But sometimes even the best laid plans can backfire spectacularly. What could possibly go wrong when you mix sports rivalries, ex-girlfriends, and one of the biggest pop stars on the planet?
She's the first rookie to win WNBA Player of the Month since the award's inception in 2010, and last night it was no exception. They were sky high for Caitlin Clark and the Fever, but to start the season, they had a little bit of a rough go of it. They lost their first 5 games. They ended up 1-8 through their first 9 games. And during that first month, the playoffs, they didn't feel realistic at all. Indy entered the Olympic break 11-15 on the year, and then they really turned it around. They've won 7 of their 8 since. They clinched a playoff berth for the first time since 2016, which, by the way, was the last year of Hall of Famer and franchise icon Tamika Catchings.
Angel Reese thought she had the perfect plan to grab everyone's attention. She invited Kayla Nicole, Travis Kelce's ex-girlfriend, onto her podcast, Unapologetically Angel. It seemed like a genius move. Get the inside scoop on the guy dating Taylor Swift. That's guaranteed to make headlines, right? But oh man, did it ever backfire? The interview took a wild turn, focusing way more on Kelce and Swift than anyone expected. Reese probably thought she'd get some juicy gossip, but instead she unleashed a tornado of drama.
She has lived up to expectations, right? I'm looking at her the way I look at LeBron James, right? For us, just in the women's side of things, and the hype that she had, the expectations she had.
Let's start with the rookie, Caitlin Clark-Kent. Superwoman, you see what I did there? She was on a tear, and last night was no different. Wings, fever. Caitlin Clark set to go as she broke the single-season assist record.
She's been playing like a top 5 player in the league. She's been regularly dishing out double-digit assists in that time frame. Teams can no longer blitz her and trap her.
The Swifties, they were not happy at all. Let's break down what went wrong. First off, the podcast wasn't even supposed to be about Kelce or Swift, but somehow that's where the conversation kept going. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion. You know it's going to be bad, but you can't look away. The most controversial moments, when Kayla started talking about her relationship with Kelce and how it compared to his current one with Swift. Yikes. That's when the Swifties really lost it. They saw it as a direct attack on their queen, and they weren't having any of it. Now here's the crazy part. Before this episode, Reese's podcast was doing okay. Nothing spectacular, but it had its audience. After this, the numbers went through the roof. But not in a good way. Sure, more people were listening, but they weren't tuning in to hear about basketball. They were there for the drama, and boy did they get it. The Swifties mobilized like never before. We're talking trending hashtags, viral posts, the whole 9 yards.
You knew they were gonna come for you. You had to know that. Now, to the degree that they're doing so, I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from. You had a decisive advantage because they made the mistake of letting you know who they are, whoever those people are. That's not the case with all, it's not the case with most, but those who screech the loudest get the most attention sometimes. And that's what the worst of cynics and critics do.
Swifties for Caitlyn and Caitlyn is queen were everywhere. Suddenly, Reese wasn't just dealing with basketball rivals. She had an entire army of pop music fans coming at her. And remember that whole taunting incident from the NCAA championship? Yeah, that came back to haunt Reese big time. People started bringing it up again, using it as proof that she was the bad guy in this story. It was like adding fuel to an already out of control fire. As the drama swirled off the court, something extraordinary was happening on it. Clark wasn't just playing basketball, she was rewriting the rule book. What records would fall next, and could anyone stop her unstoppable rise? While Reese was caught up in podcast drama, Caitlin Clark was busy proving why she's the real deal. You won't believe what she did in her last game against the Chicago Sky. Clark went off for 31 points, and that's not even the craziest part. She dished out 12 assists like it was nothing, only turning the ball over 3 times. That's the kind of performance that makes coaches drool. But here's where it gets wild. Clark didn't even play the whole game. She was so dominant that her team, the Indiana Fever, was up by so much they pulled her with over 5 minutes left. Imagine being so good you don't even need to finish the game. That's Caitlin Clark for you. Now, you might be thinking, sure, but can she do it consistently? Well, let me tell you, Clark's been on fire lately. She's not just putting up numbers, she's changing how people see women's basketball. Some folks are calling her Taylor Swift in tennis shoes. That's how big she's gotten it. But here's the thing, all this attention could have messed with her head. With millions of new fans watching her every move, the pressure was insane. But Clark, she's cool as ice. She's out there breaking records like it's just another day at the office. You know what's really impressive? How Clark's handling all this drama. While Reese is out there stirring up trouble, Clark's letting her game do the talking. She's not getting caught up in the Twitter beef or the podcast drama. Nah, she's too busy dropping dimes and sinking threes. And the fans are loving it. Even the Swifties who've never watched a basketball game in their lives are tuning in to see Clark work her magic. They're saying things like, Caitlin Clark is just the real deal. She's not actually trying to be anything but a great basketball player and her true self. That's the kind of authenticity people respect. Speaking of Swifties, they're not just tweeting their support anymore. Remember when women's basketball struggled to fill seats? Those days might be over. The real question is, are we witnessing a revolution in women's sports or just a temporary trend? Well, let me tell you, it's looking more like a revolution every day. Swifties are showing up to WNBA games in droves, and it's not just for the cool merch. These new fans are actually getting into the game, learning the rules, and cheering like they've been following women's basketball their whole lives. But not everyone's thrilled about this sudden influx of pop music fans. Some die-hard basketball supporters are worried these Swifties aren't real fans. They're asking, will they stick around when the hype dies down? It's like when your favorite indie band suddenly hits the mainstream. You're happy for their success, but part of you misses the good old days. Here's where it gets wild, though. Ticket sales for games featuring Caitlin Clark are through the roof. We're talking sold-out arenas, people. And TV ratings, they're skyrocketing too. It's like someone flipped a switch and suddenly everyone wants a piece of women's basketball. You know what's even crazier? The economic impact of all this. The WNBA is seeing a boost like never before. We're talking increased merchandise sales, higher advertising revenue, the whole 9 yards. It's like the Swifties showed up with their wallets open, ready to support their new favorite sport. But here's the million-dollar question. Is this going to last? Some folks are saying this could change women's sports forever. Imagine a world where women's basketball gets as much attention as men's. It sounds crazy, right? But with the way things are going, it might not be so far-fetched. The league is getting attention like never before. It's not just sports channels talking about women's basketball anymore. We're seeing coverage on entertainment shows, fashion magazines, you name it. It's like the WNBA suddenly became the coolest thing since sliced bread. So who's the real winner in all this drama? It's not just Clark or Reese, it's women's basketball as a whole. This unexpected clash of sports and pop culture might just be the game changer the WNBA needed. We're seeing packed arenas, skyrocketing TV ratings, and a whole new generation of fans falling in love with the game. You know what's crazy? It took a pop star's fan base to make people realize how awesome women's basketball is. But hey, sometimes it takes an unexpected twist to change the game forever. So whether you're a diehard hoops fan or a Swiftie who's never watched a game before, do yourself a favor and catch the next big WNBA matchup. Trust me, you won't regret it.